and good evening, everyone. Here we are on another Sunday. I am Lynx. I'm from
Yes.
Norway, and that is my co-hostess, Katrina.
Hello. Yes, that's me. And that intro song was What Shall We Do with the Drunken Sailor by the Midshipmen's Glee Club, I think they're called. They were kind enough to put that out on a generic YouTube license. Good song, I think. Good arrangement.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it's good to have a few resources for those of who aren't rich enough to pay for everything.
Yes, indeed. That's certainly not us. I don't think we have not got all of the monies, although we are very, very appreciative of all your lovely lemons. Thank you, DDJ.
Thank you, and good evening, Didi. Good to see you.
He's written something in Norwegian.
He is saying good evening, Shadow Cat.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Hey,
Good evening, Franol. Good to see you. And hail
thank you
to
for the
you.
diamond.
Yeah. Barky
Hail
is
for now.
celebrating 4 months sub. That is so cool.
Nice.
Yeah. Um, and what is going on YouTube? Um, just yeah. The page is loading, so I can't see anything right now.
Sometimes it do be like that. I've got the YouTube visible though, so I can see anything that's coming up there. Yeah. Got well, not exactly sea creatures. Not all of them are in the sea.
Uh, yeah, that's why I put it watery. So, because we're not just going to sea, we are journeying in watery ways. So, yeah, um, and doing some housekeeping and also on for free speech alternative. So, hi, good evening, Ersin. Do you said that correctly?
Uh, mm.
Okay, my is reading. Just give me one sec.
So that's good.
Okay, I have changed the driver, so I think it should be okay. And hi, Lucas, good to see you. I hope my audio is better now. I had to change to my old audio cable, and I couldn't remember which driver worked the best. So, it's always difficult to say with a delay or the chat. So, crossing my fingers. Yeah. Yeah.
Can
See.
hear everyone. We're good.
Yeah. C3 in
Oh.
YouTube said it now. So hopefully driver um was the issue. Um, okay, the live is not buffering, but the audio is skipping. Is it the same on YouTube and audio? video games as well. I completely forgot. So I really thought but also at least can be heard in both ears this time. So
At least there's that.
I really want to take it. I can take care of all of these things for me, and I can just relax and do the stories on the show.
Gotta hire a PA. I'll hire a personal assistant.
Same problem on YouTube. I honestly don't know what to do. It might be that the internet is a bit low. Excuse me. Okay, can you could you talk for a bit to see if it's just my audio?
Sure. So yeah, we kind of really have a lot of stories that we'd like to cover about water and the sea, and this is just one episode, really, of all of the watery sea creatures we could find. We're gonna have to keep returning to this theme, honestly, because there's just so much to say about it.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
The audio seems to be better, so hopefully it was just an internet thing. So yeah, who would have thought there were so many watery creatures?
Well, there's a lot of ocean about, isn't there?
Yeah, and we also have rivers and lakes and swamps and all of that. So yeah, this is a very watery planet. So Ferocious Chihuahua is hosting with 48 viewers. Thank you very much. It's good to see you, all of you.
Thank you.
Welcome to the heart. For those who don't know the channel, we do folk tales and talk about them. Just a cozy stream for Sunday evening or afternoon in the US. So welcome.
Yeah, welcome to all of Ferocious Chihuahua's viewers. Yeah, we got, as it says on the tin, watery themed creature stories tonight. And the first one we have is about the Lorelei, isn't it, Lynx?
No, we're starting at the sea.
Oh wait, no, we were starting with Thor.
Yeah.
I forgot.
Yeah.
Yep, the first one is actually about, well, it's something that's actually quite close to both of our hearts, really, because it is from the Poetic Edda. And I am an Odinist, and Lynx is, of course, Norwegian. So we both have a connection to the stories and the Old Norse myths. And this is one of them. And it's about Thor's encounter with a particular beast in the sea, among other things. All this trouble just to brew some beer.
Well, you can't make brewing too easy, can you?
No, I guess not. But yeah, Aegir, he's certainly got a high barrier to entry to his parties. Definitely.
Oh. Getting a cheeky comment here. I thought Lynx was a Cockney.
Oh dear.
Okay, I'm going to let that go. No, I'm not a
Ah,
secret Londoner, which you know very well. Um, Apparently, people take me to be from all over the place. I've been called Latvian, Bulgarian, even Irish,
ah,
and now a Cockney. So, just to clear everything up, I am Norwegian. I'm Norwegian from
ah.
Norway. Lived all my life in Norway, so this is an authentic Norwegian accent. So,
Indeed. Very
l-
Norwegian.
yeah. And I've also had it on good authority that I should keep it. I also have sort of been given a ban on getting rid of it, so you're stuck with it.
Yeah, okay, ferocious chihuahua. Noted.
Thank you.
Ah,
Okay, so let's go and see what Thor is up to.
indeed. Hymir's poem. In bygone days, the slaughter gods had a good bag from hunting. They were keen to drink before they got enough. They shook the twigs and looked at the augury. They found that at Aegir's was an ample choice of cauldrons. The mountain dweller sat there, cheerful as a child, very like the mash blender's son. Odin's son looked into his eyes in defiance. You shall often prepare a feast for the Aesir. The contentious man annoyed the giant. He thought of how to avenge himself soon on the god. He asked Sif's husband to fetch him a cauldron in which I can brew the ale for all of you. Nor could the glorious gods, the mighty powers, get one anywhere, until, privately, Tyr, in trustworthy friendship, gave vital good advice to Hloridi. To the east of Elivagar lives Hymir, the very wise. At the sky's end, my father, the brave man, owns a cauldron, a capacious kettle, a league deep. Do you know if we can get that liquid boiler? If, friend, we use trickery to do it. Then they journeyed hard that day and far from Asgard until they came to Egil. He secured their goats with splendid horns. They headed for the hall which Hymir owned. The lad found his grandmother. Very ugly she seemed to him. 900 heads she had, and another woman, all gold decked, walked forward, with shining brows, bearing beer to her boy. Kinsmen of giants, I'd like to seat you two valiant men under the cauldrons. My beloved, on many occasions, is stingy to guests, prone to enmity. Misshapen, stern-minded Hymir came back late from hunting. He entered the hall. The icicles tinkled when he came in. The old man's cheek forest was frozen. Greetings, Hymir. Be of good humour. Now our son has come to your hall, he whom we'd expected on his long journeyings. Hrod's adversary accompanies him. The friend of warriors, Fior is his name. See where they sit, under the hall gable. They protect themselves so with a pillar in front of them. Asunder the pillar splintered at the giant's gaze, just before the crossbeam broke in two. 8 kettles smashed to pieces. But one of them, a strong-forged cauldron, fell whole from the peg. Forward they went, and the ancient giant turned his gaze on his enemy. His mind didn't speak encouragingly to him when he saw the one who makes the giantess weep walking across the floor. Then 3 bulls were taken. The giant ordered them quickly to be boiled up. Each one they made shorter by a head, and bore them off into the cooking pit. Sif's husband ate before he went to bed. On his own he ate right up, 2
of Hymir's oxen. It seemed to Hrungnir's grey-haired friend that Hloridi had consumed a considerable amount. Tomorrow evening we 3 must live on food that we have hunted ourselves. Thor said that he wanted to row out in the bay, if the bold giant would give him bait. Go to the herds if you've the guts for it, mountain giant breaker, to look for bait. I expect that it'll be easy for you to get bait from the oxen. The young man hastened smartly to the woods. There stood an ox, jet black before him. The ogre slayer broke off from the bull the horn's high meadow, tore off its head. Hymir said, "Your deed seems much worse, captain of ships, than if you had sat still quietly." The Lord of Goats told the ape's offspring to row the launchway horse out further, but the giant said, for his part, he wasn't eager to row further out. The brave and famous Ymir alone caught 2 whales at once on his hook, and back in the stern Odin's kinsman Thor cunningly laid out his line. The protector of humans, the serpent's soul slayer, baited his hook with the ox's head, the one whom the gods hate. The all-lands girdler from below gaped wide over the hook. Then, very bravely, Thor, doer of great deeds, pulled the poison-gleaming serpent up on board. With his hammer he violently struck from above the hideous one, the wolf's intimate brother's head. The sea-wolf shrieked, and the rock bottom re-echoed all the ancient earth was collapsing. Then that fish sank itself into the sea. The giant wasn't as jolly as they rowed back. At first, Hymir didn't say a word. He swung round the rowing, completely changed tack. "You'll be doing half the work with me, if you carry the whales home to the farm, or pen up our floating goat." Hloridi went forward and gripped the prow. Alone he lifted the sea stallion with its bilge water with oars and bailer. He brought the giant sea pigs home to the farm, through the hollow in the wooded ridge. And still the giant, habitually contentious, strove with Thor about his strength. He said no man was strong, even if he could row mightily, if he could not smash the goblet. And quickly Thor, when he laid hands on it, smashed through the towering stone with the glass. Sitting, he slung it through the columns. They carried it whole back to Hymir, until the beautiful beloved lady gave him vital friendly advice which she knew. "Smash it on Hymir's skull, the food-sated giant's. That's harder than any goblet." The strong man, Lord of Goats, rose, bracing his knees, brought all his divine power to bear. Whole was the old man's helmet stump above, and the round wine vessel broke apart. "Great treasures I know I've lost when I see the goblet leaving my lap," the old man announced. "Never again can I say, 'Ale, you are brewed.' Now it's up to you if you can manage to take the beer boat out of our court." Tyr tried twice to move the cauldron. Both times the cauldron stayed immovable. Modi's father took it by the rim, and he stamped down through the floor in the hall. Sif's husband lifted the kettle up on his head. The handle rings jingled at his heels. They had gone a long way when Odin's son looked once behind him. He saw from the boulder heaps, from the east with Hymir, a many-headed army marching along. He lifted from his shoulders the outstanding cauldron. He swung Mjolnir before him, keen to kill, and he struck down all the lava whales. They hadn't gone a long way before Hloridi's goat collapsed, half dead, in front of them. The draft beast was lamed to a curse this malevolent Loki had caused. But you have heard this. Anyone wiser about the gods may tell it more clearly. What recompense he got from the lava dweller, and how he paid for it with both his children. The mighty one came to the gods' assembly, bringing the kettle which Hymir had owned, and the gods will drink in delight ale at Aegir's every winter.
Okay. That was the story of Thor and the sea pigs. That had quite a reaction.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, they do like to call things by not their literal names in the Edda.
I do believe the Nordic skalds had sort of a competition in finding metaphors for stuff.
I believe, yeah. I believe they did, because the amount of words they come up with the sword for sword alone in the Edda. And like they're calling it stuff like blood stick and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's just getting a bit silly.
Yeah.
But yeah, we shall go through if anyone is confused. First off, I didn't know what an augury, I think it's augury, was. It's a sign of what will happen in the future, or an omen. They heard the sound as an augury of death. Might be a sentence in which you use it. But it also relates to the interpretations of omens. So yeah, they've cast the sticks. They've done some sort of divination ritual, and they've somehow determined that they're going to go to Aegir's. And the mash blender's son, referred to, is Aegir. Now, do with the sea, coincidentally enough. He's obviously an excellent brewer, but that's not all. He's responsible for the sea. He's a personification of the sea, so the sea makes really good beer, apparently. He hosts the gods in his halls. After this incident, he really has no excuse not to. And he's married to a goddess called Ran, who also personifies another side of the sea, and she takes the souls of the drowned. And together the two produce daughters who personify waves. They have 9 daughters, as is quite common, because 9 is the very significant number of Odin, so it keeps cropping up in relation to the divine. Also, I didn't know this, but he's got a son called Snare. SN funny A&E back to back thing are that he personifies snow. So yeah, the whole family's pretty watery, pretty water related. But yeah, Thor has turned up to Aegir's house and demanded ale and food, and that seems very rude to us. But that was a way in which Scandinavian royalty enforced authority on their subordinates, and a man was, very much judged on his hospitality in the ancient Germanic cultures. Aegir doesn't want to do this. He doesn't want the entire tribe of Aesir having a raucous party at his house. So he says, I haven't got a cauldron. Yeah, you'll need to go get me one. And the only one big enough to brew ale for him and the gods would really be owned by the giants. They go around looking for a cauldron, but there isn't one about to be found. And Tyr gets for the tip-off that someone who is claimed to be his father has the right sort of kettle, but he might not be Tyr's father. We'll get into that. But whenever it says Chloridi, which by the way, so many attempts at recording this poem simply because of the amount of times that the name Chloridi turns up in it. That's not an intuitive thing to say. It was just like half an hour of
Should be good. That should be good
I wish I
for
could.
that should be good for a blooper episode.
I mean, I wish I could because I don't have the full thing without the bloopers. With the bloopers, because I was like, going cutting it out, starting cutting.
Always
I
keep
was
the
kind of
bloopers.
rolling with it. Yeah, I should keep. I should have kept some attempts of me trying to say already.
Yeah, I have about a minute or so in attempting to say multiplication. For some reason, I really have a problem with saying that in English. I have no problem in Norwegian, but when it comes to English, my tongue stumbles.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
I laughed for a few minutes afterwards, so that was hard to get through.
Oh dear. Yeah. But yeah, Sif's husband, Fjord, Lord of Goats, those are all Thor. And the Bane of, the one who makes the giantess weep, that whole stuff, all Thor. To Hrungnir, when we're referring to Hrungnir, anyone who's Hrungnir's friend is a giant, because Hrungnir was a well-known giant, so it's a kenning that means giant. And you can see them doing it in many places. Cheek Forest, that was a favourite of mine. Helmet Stump, Head. That was another one. I must say, oh yeah, Hrod. Hrod is another unknown giant, and Hrod's enemy is also Thor. I must say I got confused about lava whales for a second. I don't know how you get lava whales from giants. Especially because they're quite commonly referred to as frost giants. But yes, the sea pigs are whales, and the lava whales are the giants. Confusement, I know. But yeah, this incident at the end where Thor's goat is lame. That's probably relating back to the time when Thor met his manservant, Thialfi. So he goes into the house of Thialfi's family and feeds them all with his regenerating goats. So he kills and cooks these goats, tells them all to be careful with the bones, don't break any. But Loki, who in most versions is along on this adventure, persuades Thialfi the bone marrow is going to make him super strong. So he breaks a bone, then eats some marrow. And when Thor revives his goats from the bones, one has a dodgy leg. And Thialfi is taken as a manservant to pay back his debt for laming Thor's goat. I believe we've told that one on the channel, haven't we, Lynx? Telling that one with Thor and Thialfi in it.
Yeah, that was during our Christmas streams.
Mm-hmm.
So that story will be up on YouTube and Odyssey for those who want to take a listen.
Yeah, it's definitely worth taking a listen, and you'll find this, a lot if you read the Edda. You kind of you can get the gist of the stories without knowing the rest of the stories, but they are constantly making references. But yeah, Loki does pay for this and many other actions with his children, like it says in this poem. Because Jormungandr and Fenrir are the children of the giantess Angrboda and Loki. He also has a couple of normal kids with his wife Sigyn, who are said to get turned into a wolf or brutally killed. He also kind of gave birth to Sleipnir, but that's another kind of story entirely. There are reasons why we don't worship this dude. But yes, Thor doesn't defeat Jormungandr in this story because he's going to do that at Ragnarok, as the seeress prophecies at the start of the Edda. So that's, in general, what's going on there with this one. Which, the references. So many references in the Edda. Definitely.
Yeah,
Lots of hidden jokes.
there's a question in the chat with the whether it's lava whales, lava that comes from the volcanoes, or larva.
Yeah, it said lava. And in my copy of the Edda, it definitely said lava. And a copy
Yeah,
of the
okay.
Poetic Edda that I've got it's translated by Carolyn Larrington. That was recommended to me by some pagan peeps. They said it was a very good edition of the Edda, and it does indeed say lava
Yeah,
whales.
okay. Yeah.
Which I suppose some of them might be creatures of Muspelheim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would sort of defeat the notion of them being frost giants.
Yeah, lots of people say frost giants, but I don't think Jotun are solely icy creatures. If you're looking at Jotun as a whole, they seem to be very, very varied. A bit like the concept of trolls.
Yeah, I could take a look in some Norwegian editions and see what they say, and post a clarification on Twitter and Telegram, and or in the description in the video.
Yeah, could do. That would probably be helpful because I think this one is reputed to be a good English translation, but probably modern Norwegian could get a bit closer to the meaning of Old Norse, one would guess.
Yeah. I do think Icelandic would be the closest, and perhaps Faroese, but what was I going to say? Yeah, the translations can be quite varied. I just got a copy of Beowulf in the mail, and I checked Gutenberg.org for seeing the copyright, non-copyright edition, because I don't know the copyright of this one. And that translation was very different. Now that basis is Old English, of course, but it was very different with the structure of the sentences and everything. So I suppose it goes to show the translators not merely translating, but doing it in a more poetic way.
Yeah, I suppose that is what it does go to show. I mean, with reading from books mostly, I think it's quite difficult to get picked up on something. So yeah, I do hope no one's copyrighted the Edda. A little bit weird of them to copyright my religious texts, but okay.
Well, it's when it comes to old texts that are, I think, what would normally come under where the copyright expires. Then the text itself isn't copyrighted, but a translation might be.
I see,
So,
yeah.
Yeah. So that's where the issue can come in. So.
Well, I was using it for educational purposes. Pretty sure it's fair use.
Yeah.
I found referring to Thor as King of the Goats rather amusing. Yeah, it is kind of funny to think that Thor just comes into a field of goats, and goats who just respect nobody are like, oh, yeah, it's Thor.
Taking the knee.
Guys, we gotta bow. We gotta
Yeah.
do whatever he asks of us. We might get out of this alive.
Yeah. Well, when you with the story that I told during Christmas, then he is very respectful with his goats. He prepares 2 of them as a meal, and he carefully places all of the bones in the skins and hides them over the fireplace. And the son in the house didn't get full during the meal, so he steals one of the bones and breaks them and sucks the marrow. And when Thor resurrects them the day after, one of the goats are lame because of that.
Yes. Well, I think, as we were saying, it was mostly Loki's fault, I think.
What
What
isn't
isn't Loki's
Loki's
fault?
fault? Yeah.
Oh dear. But yeah, I think oh, what was I even gonna say? Yeah, I wonder how Thor's goats feel about being eternally resurrected. I guess I'm dinner again. Yep.
Don't
Gonna.
worry, it's just temporary.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of like weird. You want to talk to those goats because they've experienced death multiple times. It's kind of like deep when you think about it.
Yeah, do they go to an eternally green pasture with a few mountaintops? And no
Maybe they do.
predators? Yeah, maybe. That must be goat heaven.
And then at this point, whoever keeps the gate of goat heaven is just like, oh, you guys again. Yeah, just an overnight stop as per usual.
Yeah. Hey, non-fake news and OCM, good to see you. I
hey.
agree. I
Celebrating
agree.
the 4 months.
Yeah.
Nice.
There are 3 of us doing that tonight.
Indeed, you were one of them, Lynx, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. New people in the chat, not seen Mugwort before. Not seen the Dancing Penguin. And Sunshine Sucks. Hello, everyone.
Yeah, I've seen some of them before. Sunshine Sucks seems to be everywhere. So good to see you here as well. And I agree, just donated a diamond saying sorry I'm late, I was putting the kids to bed. That is perfectly okay.
Yeah.
It comes first, and they have to be put to bed
properly.
And they do have to be put to bed properly.
Mm-hmm.
Properly. I can't talk tonight. But
it's the L's giving you trouble. Same thing with multiplication.
Yeah, I need to get control over my tongue.
Oh dear. Shall we have the next story?
Yeah.
There's Thor and then Lorelei.
Yeah, we're going up the river next. So we are going to the Rhine. And they have a curious tale of a rather curious woman. It's quite short. It's somewhat tells more of a few anecdotes of course, I found a bit more information a couple of hours ago. So that didn't make it. So it is 2 short stories and a poem in one. So you enjoy. The Lorelei. You have perhaps seen the picture of the maiden sitting on the rock, high above the water. The old stories tell us that Lorelei was a maiden of wondrous beauty. She lived in the river Rhine. All day she would hide in the river so that no one could see her. But when night came, she would climb to a high rock, where she could be seen in the moonlight by all who passed by on the river. There she would sit and sing and comb her beautiful golden hair. This curious maiden had a wonderful power over all who listened to her sweet singing. The boatmen and fishermen were so enchanted by her wondrous songs that they forgot to guide their boats, which drifted about and were finally dashed to pieces on the rocks. So many were lost while listening to her song that a band of soldiers was sent to carry her off in the darkness. When the soldiers neared the rock where the Lorelei sat singing her sad, sweet melodies, they too were spellbound and could not move. While the men stood there, held by her magic spell, the Lorelei took off her sparkling jewels and threw them into the river, which began to rise. When the water had reached the top of the great rock where she was standing, she jumped into a green chariot drawn by horses with white manes and vanished from the sight of the wandering soldiers who had come to seize her. The water flowed back where it had been. The magic spell was broken. The river Rhine flowed on peacefully as before. Another story is that of all the suitors the Lorelei had, there was one knight that she loved best. He wanted to go to the war to win honor and glory for her sake. She begged him not to go, but he was determined to do so. A long time passed. No word came from the knight, and the maiden was very unhappy. The people declared she had caused so many to be lost in the river by her wondrous singing that they brought her before the magistrate. She flung herself at his feet and begged to die, for she loved only the knight who had gone away. The magistrate listened to her story and bade 2 knights take her to a convent where she would never be troubled any more. They crossed the river and drew near a huge rock, which the Lorelei asked leave to climb and take a last look at her home. The knights consented. As she reached the top of the rock, a boat came in sight. In it stood a knight, clad in complete armor. At once the maiden saw it was the knight who had gone to war, and whom she mourned as dead. With joy she called to the knight as he stood in his boat far below her. He heard her wondrous voice calling to him, and paid no heed to his boat, which was carried swiftly away by the strong current of the river. The Song of the Lorelei. I cannot determine the meaning of sorrow that fills my breast. A fable of old, through its dreaming, allows my mind no rest. The air is cool in the gloaming, and gently flows the Rhine. The crest of the mountain is gleaming in fading rays of sunshine. The loveliest maiden is sitting up there so wondrously fair. Her golden jewelry is glistening, she combs her golden hair. She combs with the gilded comb preening, and sings a song passing time. It has a most wondrous, appealing, and powerful melodic rhyme. The boatman aboard his small skiff, enraptured with a wild ache, has no eye for the jagged cliff, his thoughts on the heights fear forsake. I think that the waves will devour both boat and man by and by, And that, with her dulcet voiced power, was done by the Lorelei. So, be careful, you guys out there, if you're ever going on a boat up the Rhine. Because you might hear the dangerous Lorelei. So, the question is, who is Lorelei? There, as I said, there are quite a few very short and small stories, almost like anecdotes. And some say she's a mermaid, others say she's a nymph, or a water spirit, or even a siren. So it seems to depend quite a bit on the storyteller. Her origin is also unknown for this reason. There are many, many versions. One story say she was a human being, a woman who drowned herself in the Rhine after her love cheated on her and was resurrected as a siren. Others say, that she is a water spirit and or a mermaid or something like that, and hence an immortal. There's even a story about her being hit with Cupid's arrows. Where she saw a fisherman, fell in love, and he fell in love with her, and they, warmed in their romance for a few weeks, and she helped him fish and all of that. And then there was another woman or young girl who liked the fisherman, and sweet love turned into anger, and Lorelei grabbed him and dragged him into her underwater palace so that he could stay with her forever.
Psycho girlfriend.
Yeah. That
like
might
a watery girlfriend.
Yeah, maybe a prototype of a borderline personality or something.
You will not abandon me. I will drag you to the bottom of a lake instead. Or a river.
Yeah. And whatever you do, don't go sightseeing for her, wanting to see her with your own eyes, because you will not be immune. Even princes fall for that.
And just to be clear, the place where not to go sightseeing is the large rock named Lorelei, which stands on the bank of the Rhine River near St. Gorshausen in Germany. Don't go there.
No. Yeah, I gave you the stories there. There have been a lot of inspiration by her tales for artists of various kinds, both artistic and with poems and stories and all of that. The picture I'm having on the screen now, it was quite popular to make postcards with her. It looks like it was in the 20s or 30s or something. So that is an old postcard. Cool. Yeah. Yeah, the name Lorelei is literally translated to murmuring rock, because there is a watery murmur around that rock. Or lurking rock is also very literally translation.
When you say lurking rock, I just think of a rock that's just there, and then you look away from it for a second, and it's 5 feet away from where it was, trying not to look suspicious.
I can picture a rock that is just below the water surface. So you might just see it if there's a few waves or something. But other than that, it's lurking just out of sight, and you have to know it's there or you're going to smash into it.
Yeah. I believe when I had a little look around this, I believe a lot of it was the current version was sort of solidified by Clemens Brentano
Mm-hmm.
in Zubacharach. My German pronunciation is very bad today. It's not good to just transition from German to English, but it's Zubacharach am Rheine, which first appeared in his novel Godwi. So yeah, and then Heinrich Heine has written the poem about it later. I heard that I saw that it maybe borrowed some stuff from the Ovid Echo myth, but I don't know. I hadn't thought about that much, to be honest.
Well, the Heinrich Heine poem, I had last on there.
Yes.
What I thought was a very beautiful translation. As far as I know, a lot of stuff from the sirens are put into her story. That seems to be many of the more prevailing themes rather than a mermaid, because I haven't seen any descriptions of her actually having a tail, a fish tail. She seems like she's able to walk and so she's human, but she lives underwater. And as the second story told,
I had to repress an urge to quote Bastard then.
Well done. The second story is sort of another general theme in one of her versions, in that she loses a love, and that's when she starts to sing and lure men into being transfixed and crashing into the rocks. So it's quite changeable, I think, and that's rather fitting in a way, because she is tied to the water, and everyone knows that water will form itself to the container that has it. So I did think that was pretty fitting.
True. Might be an explanation for the very changeable nature of water-related creatures.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, a lovely poem and story. And we have a further step in the journey. Next. Where was it we were going next? Where's the setting of the next one? A lake, isn't it?
Yeah, a lake in Germany. It's not named, so it's one of those mystery lakes that maybe they don't name it so that people don't go there, because it seems to be a bit perilous, at least for men. So let's...
The lakes that the German government does not want you to know about.
Oh, just a little anecdote. There was a Norwegian film made a few years ago, Trolls. No, Troll Hunter.
That's an epic film. It's great. I love it.
That is the one instance I actually don't completely dislike our former Prime Minister, Jens Stoltenberg, because he does a cameo in there as Norwegian Prime Minister, as was his position at the time, where he have a hot mic moment. A hot mic moment.
Yeah.
And accidentally let it slip that the Norwegian mountains are full of trolls. So beware.
Indeed.
Yeah. So let's hear a story about mermaid love. Mermaid love. When a very rich knight died, his widow moved with her only child to a castle in the middle of a lake. The child grew in beauty and understanding, but he was always very pale and withdrawn. He had chosen a room with a good view of the surrounding lake. Ever so often he would look dreamily over the lake. When he was 24 years old, his mother urged him to choose a bride instead of leading a lonely life, but he would not. One evening he felt sad because of his mother's promptings. He leaned at the open window and saw the moon reflecting in the water. He thought of a bride and how she had to be like in order to please him. Tired, he went to bed, but forgot to close the window. Suddenly he noticed a bright glow at the window. He looked up, but could not distinguish anything. He was about to fall asleep when the curtain of the bed was swept aside and a female with silk hair and light robes stood beside it. In the subdued moonlight, he saw she was a pale, beautiful woman. She lay down beside him. They talked with each other, and the night passed. In the morning, the woman was gone, but if he left his window opened at nights, a woman would come in and lie beside him, and he was happy. After some time, he wanted to see her by day too, for he sometimes felt it was not the same woman who came to him. And besides, his mother pressed him to find a bride, even a poor bride, if only he would marry. However, the one who slept with him would say, "My dear, I cannot marry in your ways. Let us be man and wife as we have been up till now instead." But the young nobleman's mother had secretly looked for a bride for her son. She hurried and decided when the marriage was to be. On the first day of the wedding, people were dancing until the early morning. On the second day, the guests were eating and drinking by long tables. On the third day, several women led the bride to the bridegroom's chamber. When they entered, the curtains of the four-poster's bedstead rustled so much that it alarmed the bride, but the bridegroom laughed it away. When the other women left and the bride went into the bed, she found there was someone there already, a woman, a mermaid. Her icy cold breath made the bride shrink to the edge of the bed. On the other side of the mermaid, the bridegroom lay down. So it was every night. A mermaid laid between them. The young man had in mind to embrace his bride also, but she was so grieved that she pined away and died within a year, still a virgin. The same thing happened to 10 more women that the mother chose for her son. All died within a year after marrying him. He got quite a reputation. However, the 12th bride-to-be asked the wise woman what to do to survive marrying him. The woman answered, "The 11 first wives died because of mermaids, but you can protect yourself." Then the woman told her how to save herself and her husband from the mermaids. The bride was to keep the bedroom windows tightly shut on the 3rd wedding day, so that no one could come in through them. And in the midnight hour, she was to chant a spell and throw special herbs under their bed. Her husband would then still yearn for the view of the lake and would get restless and want to open a window to get fresh air, but she had to hold him back. He was not to open any window at all that night, said the wise woman. If the bride did not carry through all she was told to do, the mermaids would overcome her husband, and that might be the end of him. At the wedding, the bride carried through everything she had been told. When midnight came on the third wedding day, there came plaintive tones from outside the bedchamber. Her husband wanted to get out of bed and see what it was. Something about those sounds apparently overcame him. However, the bride managed to keep him back by silently repeating a charm that the wise woman had taught her. She held him back until long past midnight. She felt there was someone else in the moonlit bedchamber still, for the bed curtains were opened, and 12 times there was a sigh. The bride intoned another charm and prayed with her husband, as he had not even thought of praying the last 12 years. All through the late night they heard wild singing and water rushing. The water in the lake rose so high that waves licked the bedchamber windows. But at long last the night was won, and peace came along with it. 1 year afterwards, the new lady of the castle had a boy, and there was much rejoicing in the castle. However, the wise woman had cautioned the wife not to let go of her child at any time before the 12th day, so the child was baptized only on the 13th day. During the ceremony, they heard children's voices from the corners of the room. I would also like a splash of water like that. I would also like it. But there was no one to be seen. 12 children hopped forward at once. They were pale and watercolored, but beautiful, with silk hair, webbed toes, and connected feet. The count was terrified to see them. When the priest baptized them, all but one of the pale children fell dead to the floor. The last of them managed to squeeze out these words before he died, he too. A human is our father, 12 water women are our mothers. We were not holy humans, not holy waterfolks, but now we are released from that fate. Also know that the water women bought themselves 300 years of youth and beauty by loving our father. So, that was our mermaids for tonight. Perhaps not what you guys might like to encounter, as it seems like they are of the kind which slowly drains you of your life force, so might not be the best wife to have over the years.
Life
particular-
force vampires.
Yeah, they are a bit different when it comes to mermaids than many other tales, as
Let me say, cue wife jokes. Oh dear.
yeah.
Oh dear.
Ah,
Yeah.
hey Boudica. She is hosting us. That is very kind to you. Good to
Boudica.
see you. It's I haven't seen you around for a time, so it's good to see you and know that you are well. So,
Yes.
yeah, taking one mermaid wife at this lake seems to bring a plethora of them. So, if you do want a harem, it might be the place to be.
C3 says, very based at the end of that story. I think that comment's coming just now. Yeah.
Yeah, that is definitely something that crossed my mind.
I tell you what, weird, like, the husband with all the wives dying. That usually happens the other way around.
Um, yeah, when it's the brides who are dying, they are usually killed at the wedding night.
Yeah, and well, what I meant there is it's usually a wife with lots of husbands dying.
Yeah, I got
That's the
that.
usual trope.
Um, but so it's a bit different from the usual trope with
True, yeah.
for brides, as they usually have to pay with their lives on the wedding night. A theme that I will come back to closer to summer, and I have just the stories. I'm looking forward to it. Um,
Oh, I look forward to it. Yes.
yeah. And I do wonder when they got hold of him. I do suspect that they did when he was a kid, because he was so fascinated by the water.
Yeah, I feel like they probably had their sights on him for like a long time. It tends
Yeah,
to be that way with supernatural creatures.
yeah, like, ooh, a boy. Let's save him for when he's a bit older, and let's get some life out of him. uh, I do wonder if the name of of the lake will be revealed 300 years after this story took place. Maybe that's why we don't know about it. Because they're still alive.
Could be.
Mm-hmm.
That might be a thing.
Yeah, another trope that we usually see when it comes to dangerous husbands are that the bride seeks out a wise woman to learn the way to break the magic and save her life and her groom. So and that usually happens with the bride whose number is significant. Like this bride was the 12th. That is also a word I have problems pronouncing.
12. Yeah, it's a bit of a tricky one sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
I can see how. I reckon there's probably enough stories about weddings that we could do a whole episode on them if we wanted.
We could
Because they're
probably
very
do
significant.
yeah, we could probably do a marathon episode on that.
I mean, yeah. I mean, they certainly have different stresses in fairy tale weddings than they do in real life wedding planning. I mean, in fairy tale weddings, it seems like the floral arrangements are the least of your worries, to be honest.
Yeah, the question is, did the fairy tales elicit as much angst for marriage as we have these days?
Well, yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? Today it's all
Mm-hmm.
about having the perfect day of your life and a festival of you, and it's all me, 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 me. Whereas in the olden days, I think people just were like, well, we need to make an official commitment before God or the gods to this relationship. Let's wear our
Yeah.
best clothes and go do the rites.
Mm-hmm.
And so the wedding industry has really been created around a Hollywood fantasy of what getting married and relationships ought to be like, as in constantly romantic and constantly in the honeymoon phase
Yeah,
of love.
that is
Well, the honeymoon was invented too, I guess.
yeah, back in the day the focus was on wedding night. Um and of course the wedding itself as a rite and the uniting of two people and two families. Whereas today it's it seems for many, in particular women, the focus is on the dresses,
Yep.
the flowers, the decorations,
Yeah.
just the trappings of it. And that's really not important at all, at least for me.
No, not for myself either. And I would say when you're getting het up about whether the shade of red flowers, matches the red bridesmaid dresses or, stuff like that, maybe chill. I mean, I know there's a lot of pressure. I'm like not unfamiliar with the amount of wedding pressure, but yeah, it doesn't matter that much in the scheme of things. What matters is that you're making a commitment to someone that you love.
Yeah,
Definitely.
exactly. So, it's one thing to look beautiful and all of that, but when all is said and done, it's the commitment that is the important thing.
Oh, we got Jewel in the YouTube chat. Hello, Jewel
Cool.
Citizen.
Hey, good
And
to see you.
he says great audio, ladies, which is good to hear.
Yeah, we had a bit of a chat of that yesterday in a chat, with the
Nice.
eternal audio issues. It is
Oh
the
yeah.
it is the curse of live streaming to get the audio working properly, and when you think you have it, then the tech just decides to get nope, not happening.
Nope, no
And
audio for you. No sound.
yeah,
Only pictures.
or a very bad sound or something. So hence my wish for a tech assistant for this. I'm somewhat of technologically challenged as well, so I don't easily pick up stuff like this. So yeah, it's something that I definitely try to have as simple as possible and figure everything out, and then cross my fingers that everything will turn out fine. And thank you, Mike Honk. That is good of you to say. Over at YouTube.
Oh, nice. Thank you, Mike Honk, indeed.
Yeah. Something that is a bit interesting in our days, that is actually something that's been going on for a few hundred years, is the conflation of sirens and mermaids. Because the picture we have in our head today are basically mermaids. They are half fish and half beautiful woman who sings very beautiful and everything, but that's not actually the origins of it.
Yeah, there has definitely been a conflation.
Yeah.
That's quite different.
We first come across mermaids in ancient Babylonian stories. With Hera, the fish god, who was half man and half fish. And then we got the Greek god Triton. And the first descriptions of mermaids were also from the Greeks. To the point where some writers actually claim they examined mermaids. And apparently they had scales covering their entire bodies. They had gills, a fish-like mouth, and a scaly tail like a dolphin. So maybe not the most beautiful of creatures, unless you think fish are a very beautiful creature. I do wonder how they smell, because fish tend to smell.
Ew.
So
Nope. Not sure
scaly,
anyone would be crushing on the scaly fish people. Well,
no,
some corners of the internet would, but it's the internet.
yeah. Some corners of the internet will go for anything. Personally, I would not go for a scaly, smelly man, but that's just me. um, and the Greeks also had the Nereids or Nereids. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. I think we are back.
I'm just refreshing to see if we are.
Yeah, I do think we'll continue on YouTube on the same.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
We're back. We're back. I can see we're back.
Hey, Damdame, good to see you. Okay, so I will just go back just a bit. The Nereids were sea nymphs, and they are like what we today associate with mermaids. Beautiful, half women, half fish. And they mingled with humans and had children with them. Achilles was born of a mermaid, and even today some Greek families claim to have originated from such a coupling.
That's some interesting family genealogy to have.
Yeah, and it definitely takes the thought back to water spirits that seeded themselves into royal families and everything that we talked about before. It's sort of the same theme. Though the sea nymphs, they were beautiful, but they weren't singers. That was the sirens. And the classical myth about them was that they were singing, and the sailors who came within hearing range of that was captivated, just looked at them and did not see where they were going and crashed into the rocks. So their little island where they were on was sort of a killing field. But the myths around them are very interesting. They are not half women, half fish. And there were only 3 to begin with. They were handmaidens of Persephone. And Demeter sent them out to look for her daughter when she was kidnapped by Hades. And when they couldn't find her, they gave up. And Demeter had turned them into birds, so they could look for her daughter more easily. So they are actually birds. And when they couldn't find her, they gave up and went to an island, Antemeosa. I'm sure I butchered the name, so I'm sorry. But Demeter cursed them for giving up, and they had to stay in their half-bird form. So they were half human, half or humanoid, I think is the better word, and half bird. But their story and tragedy doesn't end there, because they entered a singing contest with the Muses. Everyone should know that isn't a good idea.
No. Why would you do that?
Yeah, maybe they were bored or something. But of course they lost the contest, and then they lost their wings and many of their feathers. And there was a prophecy that they would stay in their half-bird form until, and they were not able to die. They would stay like that forever until someone was able to resist their singing. And Odysseus came by. His sailors had blocked their ears, and Odysseus himself had tied himself to the mast so he could hear their singing, but was unable to go to them. And so he managed to resist them, and they hurled themselves into the sea and died as he passed. So finally they were set free. So the I do kind of feel good for them that they finally were able to pass on and not be the half-birds continuously singing in case some sailors were around or something.
Yeah, that has not got to be much of a life.
No, you do get a bit tired of it in the end, I would think. But the confusion of sirens and mermaids have been in place for a very long time. Piers Anthony and C.S. Lewis emphasized mermaids' singing abilities. Thomas Hocclève's La Mêle Rêche, I'm sure I mispronounced that badly. I'm sorry.
I probably murder all the Greek words in my story and everything.
So do I.
We can't speak all the languages.
No, I do want to learn, but I only have one life, so we'll see. But that was La Mêle Rêche was written in the 15th century, and that is the earliest source that clearly references mermaids luring sailors to their deaths with her songs. And for some reason, that conflation or the merger of the sirens and mermaids have persisted. You know, we have records of seeing them and everything that are recorded from the 1600s, and I think the last one was in 2009. So they are very persistent. And of course, the page I found, it's obviously been debunked, but who knows? Travel the sea and you might find them. Or a German lake.
Maybe. We're having a bit of a discussion in the chat here about Sumerian stuff. Yeah, I think that's a very corrupted. It takes elements from the Indo-European, but it's not quite the same thing. As far as I know, I don't actually know that much about it.
I haven't really looked into it from that side. I have more. The little I know of that is more from the Sitchin-ish side. In that, not Sitchin himself, but Joseph P. Farrell. Quite interesting theories he have. But that tends to take the view of the stories being a bit more literal than, you know, just fancy stories about gods. So
Yeah.
definitely a rabbit hole. I'm not saying I'm believing it. I just find it interesting.
Hmm. Yeah, it's not something I've looked into too much myself. I think there was some pretty dark practices going on in the Middle East. I mean, certainly in Carthage, certainly in some of the more eastern places. I'm not good at geography, so I may have completely misplaced the region. But we've got a question. What is the function of the siren? I think they seem to function in stories to represent sort of the temptations of materiality, probably. Distracting beauty, lust. Lust can steal one onto the rocks.
Yeah, that's definitely an element. We do see that quite a lot in stories. With one of the main themes is that a hero or heroine has to keep their focus. They have to have a strong will of mind. Not let yourself be distracted. It's also with their own story. I would say it also has a function of being the disobedient servant that doesn't perform the task. And you could say that they, quote unquote, gave up too easily or something. Perhaps they should have gone back to Demeter and said, we can't find her, instead of just going to an island
Going
and
off.
go to
Yeah.
an island and start singing. And I will have to read the story of their contest with the muses to say anything for certain, but that might be a bit of hubris going on. And also,
Yes.
being trapped and being in a situation they can't escape, I also think is a quite large portion of the story, and due to their past mistakes. So yeah.
That's true. That's certainly a lot of things that they could represent there. And yeah, we have more Greek stuff. We have more Greek stuff coming up because we are going to talk about Hercules and one of his labors. And
Mhm.
in terms of where we situate this, it's sort of like a swamp in a bay. So I guess it's like sea marshland. It's where the Hydra lives.
Yeah.
So do be careful on coastal marshland. That is Hydra habitat, apparently,
Yeah.
especially in Greece.
Yeah, and I don't think many have that many reasons to go into a marsh, but there is another reason to stay out of them.
Indeed. I mean, you can find interesting wildlife there. You can do a lot of bird watching,
Yeah.
which if there are hydras in marshes, it makes bird watching a more hardcore hobby than I really thought.
How many birds would be there?
Well, true. That might be how you tell that there's a hydra in your marsh. No
Yeah,
birds.
yeah. If it's free of birds, stay away.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get the story rolling.
The 12 Labours of Hercules. The Hydra. Hercules was the son of Zeus and Alcmene, who was the granddaughter of the hero Perseus, the slayer of the Gorgon Medusa. The wife of Zeus, the goddess Hera, was understandably enraged to hear that her husband's mistress was pregnant. In revenge, she became determined to make life difficult for young Hercules. She used her supernatural powers to prevent Hercules from becoming the rightful ruler of Mycenae, instead installing the feeble Eurystheus. As soon as the baby Hercules was born, she sent 2 snakes to kill him in his crib. However, the demigod strangled them both to death. However, Hera would not give up. Once the young Hercules had married and had 2 children, Hera cast a spell upon him and made him lose his mind. In a confused and angry state, he killed his own beloved wife and children. When he awakened from his temporary insanity, Hercules was shocked and upset by what he'd done. He prayed to the god Apollo for guidance and indeed begged for punishment for his terrible deed, even though it had really been no fault of his own. Apollo, the god's oracle of truth and healing, knew that Hercules had not meant to commit such an atrocity. But a sin such as that must still be cleansed. And so he told him he would have to serve Eurystheus, the king of Tiryns and Mycenae, for 12 years, in punishment for the murders, and perform 10 heroic labours, feats so difficult that they seemed impossible. Today we speak of one labour in particular, the second, where Hercules was sent to kill the great water snake, the Hydra, in the swamps of the Bay of Lerna. From the murky waters of the swamps, the Hydra would rise up and terrorize the countryside, a monstrous serpent with 9 heads, with deadly poisonous venom. The beast was far from easy prey, for one of the 9 heads was immortal, and therefore indestructible. Hercules set off to hunt the many-headed menace, but he did not go alone. His trusty nephew, Iolaus, was by his side. Iolaus, who shared many adventures with Hercules, accompanied him on many of the labours. Legend has it that Iolaus won a victory in chariot racing at the Olympics, and he is often depicted as Hercules' charioteer. So the pair drove to Lerna, and by the springs of Emymone they discovered the lair of the loathsome Hydra. First, Hercules lured the coily creature from the safety of its den by shooting flaming arrows at it. Once the Hydra emerged, Hercules seized it. The monster was not so easily overcome, for it wound one of its coils around Hercules' foot and made it impossible for the hero to escape. With his club, Hercules attacked the many heads of the Hydra, but as soon as he smashed one head, 2 more would burst forth in its place. To make matters worse, the Hydra had a friend of its own. A huge crab began biting the trapped foot of Hercules, quickly disposing of this nuisance. Most likely with a swift bash of his club, Hercules called on Iolaus to help him out of this tricky situation. Each time Hercules bashed one of the Hydra's heads in, Iolaus held a torch to the endless tendons of the neck. The flames prevented the growth of replacement heads, and finally, Hercules had the better of the beast. Once he had removed and destroyed the 8 mortal heads, Hercules chopped off the 9th, immortal head. This he buried at the side of the road leading from Lerna to Elis, and, for good measure, he covered it with a heavy rock. As for the rest of the hapless Hydra, Hercules slit open the corpse and dipped his arrows into the venomous blood. Eurystheus was not impressed with Hercules' feat, however. He said that since Iolaus had helped his uncle, this labour should not count as one of the 10. This would not be the last time that Eurystheus discounted Hercules' hard work. So he ended up doing 2 more tasks than he really should have. And so the frustrated Hercules was tasked to steal a red deer, the pet of the goddess Diana. However, that is a story for another time.
So there we had Super Chad, Hercules.
Absolute Giga Chad.
Yeah, and for those who do brave the marshes, do make sure you bring a friend and arm him with a torch.
Mm. Well, so there are a few versions, as I was saying to I agree, of this myth. That crab, for a start, turns up rather randomly. Explanation for that is that Hera sent a large crab to distract him. And in some versions, he actually crushes it under his mighty foot. And then the Hydra's one immortal head was cut off with a golden sword given to him by Athena. Smith, minus Iolus and the torch, is that after cutting off one head, he then dipped his sword in it and used its venom to burn each head so it couldn't grow back. And Hera, with her grudge again, is said to have raised the Hydra. And she's really upset that Hercules slew her pet beast that she raised specifically in order to kill him. She really does hold grudges. She places it in the dark blue vault of the sky as the constellation Hydra. So it's stars now. And then she turns the crab into the constellation Cancer. And then Hercules later used his arrows that he dipped in the Hydra's poisonous blood to kill a centaur called Nessus. But this caused some problems because the centaur's tainted blood was applied to the tunic of Nessus, and the centaur had his posthumous revenge. And sort of this poison is so strong that it gets into the rivers from this tunic. I don't know how that particularly happens. Presumably it is washed. I'll have to do more reading into the myths, but yeah, this poison basically turns a whole stretch of river, turns the fish inedible. The river Anagras in Elis. So later repercussions do come from using Hydra poison, which might be kind of metaphorical. Like, you can't use the forces of evil for good type of thing. But yeah, in general, to me, this seems like a Thunderous Slay serpent myth kind of recreation. Because Hercules himself is the son of Zeus. So Zeus is a thunderer. And you have a similar myth with his dad as well, where he slays Typhon. And, you've got this myth all over the place. You've got Thor and Jormungandr, as we've already seen. We've got Perun and Veles. We've got Indra and Vitra. One I hadn't heard of, the Hittite storm god Tarhunt, slaying the serpent Ilionka. So there's a lot of this myth all about. And when it comes to Hercules' dad, Zeus, and Typhon, Typhon was a monstrous serpentine giant and one of the deadliest creatures in Greek mythology. And that particular beast was the son of Gaia and Tartarus. Or that's one of the origins he's said to have had. Others say he's the son of Hera, Zeus's wife, which Zeus certainly picked a wife with a lot of baggage. And another makes Typhon the offspring of Kronos, which is kind of interesting because Kronos is a representation of time, from that which I understand. So Zeus's victory is kind of happening in all times, and is a cause of eternal renewal, because in this case he defeated the monster that was of time. But it's also interesting when he defeats it, if he defeats it and it's a product of Gaia and Tartarus, because Gaia is the earth and Tartarus is the primordial sort of abyss personification of. So it's kind of the Sky Father beating the earth and the primordial forces. You know, the solar forces winning out. And it makes sense that this sort of destiny for Hercules is sort of a renewal of the same rite that his dad has already completed. That's how I see it anyway, and then other gods have had to kill a serpent. Apollo had to kill a serpent called Python. And some people say these stories are derived from Near Eastern antecedents, but yeah, we all know Europeans, Aryans, they got everywhere. Like, there's a lot of chance that there were some Indo-Europeans involved in the Eastern myths. You know, we have a lot of interrelation there. And, you know, we're seeing this myth all over the place. Hadad Baal, as well, was a storm and rain god in the Canaanite and Mesopotamian religion. Now, he defeated Lotan, a sea serpent who was the servant of the sea god Yam. Now, these guys, the Canaanites, they got up to some shady stuff. They did. They talk about it a bit in Aristogenesis 4. They talk about the Punic peoples. But they did have some Indo-European admixture. I believe they were mostly mercantile, though. But these myths are really spread everywhere with the European expansion from the Pontic-Caspian steppe, or, well, you want to go a bit wild, Beringia. That's a theory that Aristogenesis proposes. It does explain how we ended up apparently in both South America and Russia. Quite interesting theory there.
Mm-hmm.
But that was sort of my thoughts on it. It seemed a very classic Thunderer versus Serpent type of archetype, which, interestingly, we kind of had that a bit just earlier this week with St. George's Day, because that is yet another continuation of that myth. I mean, as I tweeted out, for Odinists, it was Sigurd's Day. We think that St. George was a continuation of that tradition. Sigurd slayed Fafnir. So yeah, you get this myth turning up in its various forms all over the place, really. It's very fascinating.
Yeah, it's also theorized by some people that the snake represents the feminine and, you know, the great goddess. And in that sense, stories like this is also a representation of sort of the continuous fight between the masculine and the feminine. Some also take it with into the religious aspect, with the patriarchal religions fighting with the matriarchal religions. I do think there was a point I was going to make, but I forgot it.
Oh, dear.
I've been watching quite a bit of Robert Sepper these last few weeks, and he is definitely of that thinking. So that is definitely something that strikes my mind. But you could also see it as a picture of an internal struggle. If we think that both men and women have the aspects of the opposite sex within them, and that has to be integrated properly. And in that sense, I would say that the struggle will mark that transformation within a man as he conquers the serpent and sort of gets that in line within himself, and also it will spark the more heroic aspects within the man. So yeah,
It will, yeah. Yeah, I think you're onto something that could represent the balancing of forces, the overcoming of one's own nature, that type of thing.
yeah,
We've got a hypothesis here that Ymir seems to be the same as Kronos. Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
yeah. It could be a similar sort of figure. I do just while I have it in my mind, I do want to say one thing in Hera's defense. Yes, she wasn't a very nice woman, but I do think she also married quite the wrong man.
Yeah, she married a serial cheater.
Yeah,
But
and she was the kind of woman who looks at marriage as sacred. So
yeah, again,
go.
we don't take this too literally as well,
No.
because as we've discussed before, the whole Salist thing, the gods are good, therefore, if they're doing things that appear to be abhorrent in their fairy tales, what does it represent? What does it mean on the level above that which is happening? And that's kind of the tack I tend to take in the interpretation, because when you're talking about gods, of course, you're not talking really about physical people. You're talking about divine forces. Oh, hi, Spotnik, sweetheart. We discuss folk stories, and then we sort of branch off on the themes and thoughts that come to us from those stories. So we will generally play a story, and then we will discuss, and then we'll play another story. And that's the sort of thing that goes on.
Yeah, and
That was
today
our
we
last
have
one.
today we have watery creatures. So um and quite a few of them. So yeah, we will get our new schedule up as soon as possible in the about section on DLive.
Yes, we
Get
should
it
do that.
out. Yeah, and get it out on Telegram and Twitter. So yeah, we have an archive at YouTube and Odyssey. YouTube is linked in the about section. Let's see if Odyssey is. No, it's library, but it is on there as well. If you do want to look at Odyssey, we will update this as soon as possible. But you can find our Odyssey link in our profile on Twitter, and that should be in the description. Yeah, yes, it is. It's at Hearth Europa. So yeah, you should be able to find all our links.
Cool. Yeah, we should do one of them link trees maybe sometime.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
saw people doing that.
yeah. I took a peek at the No White Guild's link tree yesterday. That was one tree.
Yeah.
Oh my god. That was just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling.
Ooh.
So he is basically everywhere.
So many links on that guy's link tree. He does get up to a
Yeah.
lot though.
Yeah, he did. He does. I don't understand how we can keep up with it all, but he's probably a bit better than I am at these things.
An organized person.
Yeah, I'm a bit more of a scattered person, so. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
do we have anything more to say about the Uber Chad Hercules?
no, I don't think I do. I think his actions speak for themselves.
Yeah,
He backed multiple heads in with a stick, and then
uh,
he couldn't kill the ninth one, so he just put it under a rock and told it to
yeah,
shut up.
yeah. So if you come across any large rocks in
And then he
Greece,
created a biohazard.
yeah, but if you do come across a large rock in Greece, don't touch it. Don't try to move it.
No, do not move any large rocks in Greece, especially not in the Lerna area.
No.
Well, thank you for the ice cream, Sparky, and Elliot Page for the lemons, and
Yeah,
thank
thank
you
you.
for the follow Sputnik, sweetheart.
Yeah. Um.
Telegram is good. Yes, I agree.
Mhm.
Although I think it might have just had a little bit of a compromising business deal from what I heard. So yeah, we'll probably have to move platforms at some point. Oh well, nothing new about that.
Well, if the information comes from their enemies, I will take it with a grain of salt.
Mm.
I haven't looked into it, so bear that in mind. Um, but
Yep.
you
Well,
know,
just be sensible on it like you would any other platform.
yeah, my rule of thumb is don't say anything you wouldn't say in front of your mother. So,
Indeed.
just keep it clean and no Fed posting, and you should be all right.
Oh, thank you for the ice cream, dancing penguin.
And Elliot Page
Yep.
for the
Or
diamonds,
lemons.
lemons. I mean,
Lemons. Lemons. Oh,
yeah,
so many D-Live currencies. They're a bit random.
yeah, yeah. I think Trovo is a bit more complicated, but that's because I haven't been on there much. So I just
Mm.
hear of various donations. So it doesn't really make
Yeah.
sense to me.
I think Fornull had a Trovo. Think so. Think he was streaming on there.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I quite often watch things on YouTube though. I shouldn't, but I do.
I've ended up mostly on D-Live, but that was because I moderated for so many on here. And they were kicked off YouTube or stopped streaming there, so it is usually D-Live and YouTube. I've been on Trovo just a few times, but I've had quite a bit going on this year, so I haven't had time to be so much on social media.
Yeah, it's a time suck. It is.
No, I wasn't hinting to get diamonds.
No,
My
we're
head
not.
just went in the wrong direction.
We're not trying to. We're not trying to grift that hard.
No, we are grateful for all the donations we do get,
We cool.
and we don't expect them. So when we do get them, we become really, really happy. I agree with 14 lemons. Thank you very
Yay.
much.
Lemons.
Yeah.
Don't know what we're gonna do when all these lemons turn up. Make lemonade, I guess.
Yeah, that's what you do with lemons from what I hear. You do not hold a lemon party, just to make that absolutely clear.
Mm-hmm. Right, talking of
Oh.
lemons, let's do chest.
Wait.
Oh, we got so.
I
Did you
agree.
see my question earlier? Let's see.
Yeah.
Is there any way I can look at that? What was said?
If it's a diamond, you should be able to see it with at the
Okay.
back end on the live.
Yeah, I can see the most recent lemons donated. I can see. Yeah, I can see the records. Ah, yeah, you just added. Okay, what was your question again? Because I can't find it. The chat's confusing.
Ah, okay. Just repeat it.
It gets hard to keep track.
Yeah. That's the main problem on being on several platforms. It's quite difficult to keep track of all the chats.
Quite a lot of clicking around. And I never want to ignore YouTube. I know YouTube works better for quite a lot of people. I mean, we're really trying to diversify platforms. I
Yeah,
know we have Periscope.
yeah, that should hold most of our episodes. We will get around to posting them on Odyssey as well. They are too large to be mirrored automatically. And it's just been not enough time in the days to get them downloaded and then uploaded and everything. So for our replays, for this episode, you can also watch on DLive, of course.
So I agree as put the question back in the chat. I only put up with DLive so that I can donate to you. Is there any other way I can support the stream? Yes,
Yes,
entropy.
entropy. We have an entropy. So for those who for that method and watching there as well, here is the link in DLive. Link is up in the description in on YouTube. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Or playing anything? Well, library doesn't stream, but you can give people library credit. That's two ways in which a person can support the stream if
Yeah.
they wish. Okay.
I
So
put the entropy link in the YouTube chat as well. And you can donate on there even if we're not live. So so yeah.
Nice. Right. Okay. Gonna feed the chest.
Chest feeding. Yes,
Yeah.
I am going to milk that for all it's worth and more.
Indeed. The chest feeding.
The word is too perfect not to use. It's the only chest feeding there is.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
No other sorts of chest feeding. Only feeding
No.
the D-Live chest. We do not accept this as the new term for what a woman naturally does with her baby.
No, they might not have known it, but it was specifically a term made for DLive.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. Let's do the rewards.
Yay!
I feel like so you have to click to get reward. I've been on a stream when rewards have been distributed. I think I had to click.
Yeah, you have to click the yellow box. And it pops up. It took me a long while to figure that out.
I get you. It takes me longer than it should do to figure these things out. Hey. So
Yeah,
I
so
agree. The dancing penguin. You Lynx. You got lemon.
Mm-hmm.
And DGJ and Elliot Page all
Hey.
got lemons.
Congratulations, all the winners.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well done to everyone who clicked for those lemons. Yay, and DDJ is now giving the lemons. The lemon counter is going up. Sparky
Yeah,
donated a diamond.
Thank you, Sparky.
And that's the first time that the chest is actually opened for a green in a while. Chest gods have decided that you are worthy.
Yeah. That's
And
good
Dee
to
Dee's
hear.
donated us 20 lemon.
That is
Nice.
very good of you, sir.
Well, that is it for tonight, folks. Oh, that's the largest amount of lemons that Dancing Penguin has ever gotten. And DDJ finds that it would be better if the currency was pies. Oh, I agree. Thank you very much for the diamond. And sorry to hear you won't be around next week. But as always, there's the replays and the
Yeah.
stories. So you can catch up on everything.
Mm-hmm. So
Yourself and a couple of guys are doing a 44-mile hike.
Ah.
Nice. Yes, indeed. I do wish you luck. I think that's. I don't think I've ever done. I do hike, but I don't think I've ever done a 44-mile one. No, I definitely haven't. That's a long way. Good on you.
I wouldn't know because I am a metric person, so I would have that translated into.
It's like a lot of kilometers.
I do know that much. But the distance
Right, let me
doesn't
Google
really
this.
tell me much. I have been on quite long skiing trips over the years. I am Norwegian. We do have to go to the mountain and ski and all of that. So, Sparky with another diamond. Good night, everyone.
A mile is like 1.6 kilometers. That's how long it is. So it's a long hike.
Yeah.
Well, good night, everyone. Good night,
Yeah.
C3.
We
Good night,
will
Didi.
Good night.
Magic is French and homosexual. Okay. Magic is French and gay. Oh dear.
Yeah. We will be back next Sunday. Same place, same time, and that is 3 p.m. EST, 8 p.m. GMT, and 9 p.m. CET.
Nice.
So hope to see as many as possible back, and we will have more interesting stories for you. So have a wonderful Sunday and a wonderful week, and see you next week.
Nice. Good night.
Good night.